Welcome back to the channel. I want to show you guys the curves and color slice tools. With this image, I would normally add a node and start doing the lift, gamma, gain, and contrast and saturation to get an image looking how I want it. But I decided to experiment with the color slice and the curves tool today. So here's what it is straight out with nothing on it, no LUT and no other adjustments. And then here's what we have after just these two nodes. And the slice node's doing the heavy lifting and the curves just kind of doing this complementary lighting change. With the curves disabled, let's go into the slice node and see what that's doing. Now the new color slice tool is essentially a density and saturation tool. So you have these global adjustments at the top, which affect everything overall. And then you can go in down here and make changes with the individual slices. So this is kind of like if you were going to qualify a color, but you don't have to do the matte finesse and all of that. So if we click on the red channel here, this little icon is the highlight. Once you've clicked on it, you can use the Shift H shortcut to come on and off. But if you go to another parameter like the skin one here and you hit Shift H, it's going to recall the last thing you highlighted down here. So you have to click on the skin highlight and then that'll switch over to that parameter. So back to the red channel here, basically we have a hue and a center point, and then you have a density and a saturation column. So if we take a look and look at the scarf here, and I'll move this saturation, you can see the changes it makes to just that. And then you can see if you highlight, that's the only thing being affected. And then the density is just how deep the color is. So let's go over to the vector scope. And as we change this hue slider, you can see what it's doing to that red right there. It's getting a lot more saturated and dense on the vector scope. And then we also did some changes to the skin here, which because of this coat color and the background of the lamp, they're pretty similar. It grabbed some of that as well. But we gave these a little bit of a boost, quite a bit of a change for just that single node. And we haven't even gotten to the curve yet. And no other parameters have been adjusted except these two. Now, if we go over to the curves, that adds some of the highlighting and the lights in the background. So let's go over here. The only adjustment I've made on here is under the hue versus luminance. And when you hover over your image, you get this eyedropper and you can make a selection. So let's choose this dark corner here. You can see we got a new selection over here on the right, and that lets us change those colors. Now to get rid of them, you can right click the dots here. And if you wanted to use one of these preset areas down in the bottom, click that and it'll give you a range where you could start affecting just that. And you don't have to have the spline on. It's this clickable right here, wherever you're at. So if you're on one of these dots and your spline is selected, it'll turn to a spline. So I'm going to get rid of these here, undo the spline, right click this dot and this one and go back to where we were. So this is just boosting up the hue versus luminance in this range. And it does a pretty nice, gentle job. And it seems to be pretty non-destructive without having to do a bunch of qualifying and matte finesse like you would over here in the HLS qualifiers, which has its place, but I wanted to see what color slice and curves would do. And if you widen this up, it does a nice roll. And then I had a spline on here too, adjusting the slope just a little bit. So you can play with it a little bit further too to really dial it in how you want it to be. Two nodes, and those are the only two adjustments, and pretty drastic difference from this to this. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.